Hello everyone, it's Jonny Khatru, and in this video it's my first listen to Yellow Swans Going Places. From that album title you might expect a post-bop jazz album in the vein of Herbie Hancock's Taking Off or something, but nope, this is a classic album in the noise and drone genre. I'm quite new to the world of noise music, but I love plenty of albums in the drone and drone metal genre, especially the drone work of Boris and Sunn, as well as stuff from the more ambient side such as Stars of the Lid and Bass Communion. This is my first time hearing the band Yellow Swans. Seems this album was in fact their swan song. A bit of a culmination of the band's years of work of putting out live recordings and countless albums. It seems this one is considered by many to be their best though, and one of the best albums in the world of noise music in general in fact. The rest of this video will be highlights from the Late Noise listening party on Twitch, where I listened to this album in full for the first time, and you can follow me over there if you'd like to join us for more listening parties. So do me a favor and click the like button on this video, and let's get into the album. This is Yellow Swans with Going Places. This is almost reminding me of some like ambient techno that I like, or like some dub techno stuff. There's even a melody in this, isn't there? Really cool introduction. Very happy to hear it's more in this lane of what I perceive to be more like the sort of noisy side of techno that I've enjoyed before. Stuff like Vatican Shadow comes to mind. But yeah, there's like this sort of beautiful melodic element in amongst all the noise, which is, you know, really cool to hear. And, you know, on top of that, there's all this really detailed noise going on top of it. Well, not on top of it, it's the main event, isn't it? Yeah, it sounds great. Definitely whetted my appetite, that first track. So let's get into track 2. It's called Opt Out. It's pretty beautiful. Sounds so good. I wasn't expecting it to be so beautiful. Well, guys, I'm very pleased. I loved that. That was wonderful. I feel like I had to like wake myself out of it. Yeah, I had a wonderful experience enjoying that. Really could feel it, you know, through my whole body. It was a similar experience for me as I've had listening to some of my favorite drone music in the past. Especially some of my favorite stuff like Boris's 𝐒𝐻𝐬𝐵𝐭, which I've mentioned plenty of times before. But yeah, it's just that kind of music that it just manages to not just appeal to my ears and just my mind, but it like I feel it through my whole self. Not to get too pretentious, but I do feel it that way, you know. The really fascinating thing is, whereas something like Boris's music or something like Sunn is built out of rock or metal, and then they build intensity on top of that, the beginning of this was reminding me of just some beautiful ambient music that I've heard already with some noise going on, like very textured with distortions, to the point where when they started building the noise on top of the basis, it started to feel like, oh wow, it gets noisier. And then halfway through it was like, oh my god, it's going to another level. Every time you thought that they'd brought it to the full extent of the layers, they would add another layer somehow. By the last few minutes it was completely transcendent. Wonderful stuff. Let's get into track 3. It's called Sovereign. More wonderful textures in that track, of course. But I was really impressed by the, I guess, melodic element to that one as well. Like there were certain notes that would come in reliably every now and then, and I began to look forward to them, especially some of the lower ones. It was even reminding me of like some kind of gargantuan space, you know. But what I ended up thinking about was the Metal Gear Solid 2 soundtrack. So take from that what you want, but beautiful to me. And yeah, just again, so many layers of wonderful distortion. And as Joel said, a wonderful space to be in. Track 4 is called Limited Space. Waves of sound. Another wonderful build in that track. I did really love the waves of sound they were creating, presumably with guitar on that track. Yeah, it sounded great. But it was also really interesting how, again, that was another song that sounded like an ambient or dub techno kind of track. I was even reminded of Gas in that one, as I mentioned early on, just because of this kind of incessant pulse while the layers are built on top, and this focus on texture while the pulse keeps things going. And it's interesting because I don't think these guys are really coming from that place. They're not coming from a place of electronic music, I don't think, but they're somehow ending up at the same end location. I think that's how it seems to me. You know, last night I was listening to that 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐸 album, and I was thinking to myself that I think when I first heard 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐸's stuff, I was quite shocked by how loud it was, because what I'd come to know ambient music to be was something quite calm and soothing and at least gentle, you know. So when I first heard 𝐒𝐻𝐻𝐸, and especially his Virgins album, which is pretty intense on some tracks, but the track Live Room being extremely noisy, it just kind of means that I recategorized the way I think of ambient music. Like, just because it's ambient doesn't mean it can't be loud. The fact that it's ambient to me just means that you're putting a focus on texture. So of course this album has taken us to some extremely loud and abrasive places, to the point where I understand that, you know, this is noise and can be considered a noise album. But I feel like maybe they don't consider it ambient because maybe they have that same conception of ambient from the olden days of ambient music, that it's supposed to be something quite gentle and calm, when that's not what this is. This is very eventful music, you know, with progression and intensity. So anyway, these are just my somewhat ignorant thoughts, you know, as I'm getting to grips with this music. Really enjoying it though, guys. Really enjoying it. Okay, next one, track 5 is called New Life. I have to say, I was a little less taken in by that track than I was every other track so far. And I think it's just because, one, I'm getting a little bit desensitized to the sounds, but also I didn't feel that that one brought as much new to the table as the other tracks did. And the melodic element wasn't quite as strong as some of the other tracks. That being said, it still sounded wonderful and obviously continues the mood of the album correctly. And there were some really nice swells around the middle point of it, or 3/4 maybe. Yeah, I did feel something rise up there. Yeah, next is the title track, last song, and it's the title track of the album. Excited for this one. Track 6, and it's called Going Places. Somehow feels a little darker than the other tracks. I don't think I've said so yet, but the production is fantastic. Everything sounds incredible, you know, every little sound just glows. Sounds haunted. Fantastic. Yeah, they really went out on a satisfying one there. It was one of the best tracks easily. Just as promised by the introduction to that track, that was definitely the darkest piece on the album. There was something, like I said, haunted about it. And as it started to build, the somewhat creepy side was kind of replaced by this transcendental feeling again, but always with that darkness, especially carried by the melody, which repeated throughout. Another wonderful, developing, slowly building piece. I had the same experience in that track as I had with Opt Out, which was that 1 minute I'm admiring the textures, I'm enjoying the feeling of the song, but before I know it, something more is happening, something else is taking over. Like there's this point where it gets layered enough and noisy enough that you start feeling it through your body. You know, unlike some other music I've heard that has given me that feeling, what these pieces do, because they build so slowly, you don't notice it start to happen. And I found that very interesting. It's like, oh, how long have I been feeling this? You know, I can't remember anymore, but I know I'm feeling it now. Yeah, a really beautiful track. And what a fantastic album. That feeling that I got in this album, that really beautiful, very physical feeling, is something that I've enjoyed in a lot of drone metal and noise rock albums, you know, particularly Sunn and Boris, their stuff. But I feel like this music, this band, they seem to have tapped into that one specific magic, and they're able to construct their whole music around it. They make their whole pieces around aiming for that feeling. Many albums, many bands I've heard touch that feeling, but Yellow Swans have been able to most consistently tap into it across the length of a whole album. And what's more, the album's so well structured and just long enough. You know, it's that perfect album length and it doesn't outstay its welcome at all. But I feel so satisfied at the end of it. I'm very pleased with this album on first listen. Really enjoyed it and very much appreciate all the recommendations to listen to it. This has been a fantastic album to start this series with, because hopefully we'll do a few more of these late night streams where we listen to more textural music. So leave a comment down below to let me know your thoughts on this album. And if you missed the stream and would like to see my full unedited reaction, you should check out my Patreon. Whichever tier you support me at, you get access to the full archive of unedited reactions, and you'll be helping me to keep making these videos and keep my channels going, so I'll really appreciate it. Thank you so much to all my current Patreon supporters, and thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take it easy.